It arrived without warning. A simple chat window that suddenly felt alive. It wrote poetry. It debugged code. It answered questions we hadn't even thought to ask. It felt like intelligence. But what is it, really? On November 30th, 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public. Within 5 days, it had over 1 million users. Within 2 months, 100 million. It was the fastest-growing technology adoption in human history. A tool of unimaginable power, promising to amplify our creativity and productivity. But with that power came a shadow, a sense of unease, a question that echoed in the silence between its near-instant replies. We saw its brilliance, could explain complex physics, draft legal documents, even generate novel ideas. But we also saw its flaws. It would invent facts with utter confidence, creating plausible-sounding nonsense, what researchers call hallucinations. It was a tool that could be incredibly helpful but also dangerously misleading. A perfect mirror of the data it was trained on, all of humanity's knowledge and all of its biases. To understand ChatGPT is to understand this paradox. It's not a mind. It's not magic. It's a new kind of interface to knowledge itself. The best way to think of it is like a compass in a dense fog. It can give you a direction, a plausible path forward. But it cannot give you proof. Points, but it doesn't know. The responsibility of verification remains with us. So how did we get here? How did a machine learn to manipulate language so effectively that it could pass the bar exam, write a sonnet, and convince millions it was on the verge of consciousness? The story doesn't start with a chat window. It starts with a foundational idea, a breakthrough in understanding how machines can process not just words, but the relationships between them. It starts with a revolution in artificial intelligence, hidden in a 2017 research paper. For decades, AI struggled with language. Recurrent neural networks, or RNNs, processed words one by one, in sequence. This was slow, and the model's memory was short. It would forget the beginning of a long sentence by the time it reached the end. But in 2017, researchers at Google published a paper titled "Attention is All You Need." It introduced a new architecture, the transformer. Instead of processing words sequentially, it could weigh the importance of all words in a sentence at once. The key was the attention mechanism. Imagine a sentence. The robot picked up the ball even though it was heavy because it was made of steel. An RNN might get confused about what it refers to, but a transformer's attention mechanism can create a map, linking it back to ball and robot and weighing which connection is more likely. It pays attention to the relationships between words, no matter how far apart they are. This was the breakthrough that allowed AI to understand context. With the transformer architecture, OpenAI began building a series of generative pre-trained transformer models, or GPTs. The strategy was simple but computationally massive. First, pre-train the model on a colossal amount of text from the internet. Its only goal: predict the next word. It wasn't taught grammar or facts, only patterns. Over time, with enough data and enough scale, something remarkable happened. The model didn't just learn to predict words, it learned to form sentences, then paragraphs, then entire articles. This was the scaling effect. GPT-3, released in 2020 with 175 billion parameters, was a major leap. But it was still a raw tool, mostly for researchers and developers. The final, crucial innovation was to fine-tune the model not just for prediction, but for conversation. Using a technique called reinforcement learning from human feedback, OpenAI trainers would rank the model's responses, teaching it to be more helpful, harmless, and conversational. This transformed the raw power of GPT into something approachable. Created a partner. Created ChatGPT. The launch of ChatGPT on November 30th, 2022, was a cultural shockwave. What was once a tool for specialists was now in the hands of everyone. Artists, teachers, lawyers, and students all began to explore its capabilities. The internet was flooded with examples of its surprising creativity and, at times, its bizarre failures. A new economy of knowledge began to form, built on the art of crafting the perfect prompt, of finding the right words to unlock the model's potential. In February 2023, OpenAI introduced ChatGPT+, a subscription service offering faster responses and priority access to new features. This marked the first step in turning the research preview into a sustainable product. For $20 a month, users could get a more reliable version of the tool that was already changing how they worked, wrote, and thought. But the real turning point came in March 2023. With the introduction of plugins, ChatGPT was no longer confined to its own knowledge. For the first time, it could reach outside of itself. It could browse the web for real-time information, run its own code to solve complex math problems, and connect to third-party services to book flights, order groceries, or search databases. The chatbot was no longer just a chatbot. It was becoming a platform. This new capability was powered by GPT-4, a far more advanced underlying model. It was more creative, less prone to factual errors, and could handle much more complex instructions than its predecessor. The combination of a more powerful model and the ability to access external tools marked a new era for AI assistants, one where they could not just talk, but do. As powerful as GPT-4 was, it was still limited to text. But the digital world is not just words. It's images, sounds, and videos. In September 2023, OpenAI gave ChatGPT eyes and ears. Users could now have voice conversations with the model, choosing from 5 distinct, AI-generated voices. It was no longer just a text-based exchange. It was a fluid, back-and-forth conversation. You could talk to it, and it would talk back. More profoundly, ChatGPT could now see. By uploading an image, you could ask it questions about the visual world. What kind of plant is this? Why isn't my grill working? Can you suggest a recipe based on the contents of my fridge? This was multimodality, the ability to understand and reason across different types of information. The barrier between the digital and physical worlds was beginning to dissolve. It was moving from a typing interface to a living interface. Then, in November 2023, OpenAI took customization to a new level with the introduction of GPTs. Anyone could now create their own custom version of ChatGPT, tailored to a specific task or persona, without writing a single line of code. A math tutor for your kids, a sous chef for your kitchen, a creative writing coach. It was the beginning of an app store for personas. This explosion of capabilities, seeing, hearing, speaking, and specializing, happened in less than a year. The pace of innovation was staggering. But as the model became more integrated into our lives, a new set of questions emerged, centered on trust, privacy, and the very nature of memory. For ChatGPT to be a true assistant, it needed to remember. In February 2024, OpenAI began testing a memory feature. No longer would every conversation start from a blank slate. It could remember your job, your communication style, your goals. This offered a new level of personalization, making interactions smoother and more intuitive. But it also raised a critical question. What does it mean for a machine to remember you? And who controls that memory? The question of trust is inseparable from the problem of hallucinations. These are not bugs in the system. They are a fundamental property of how it works. The model is a pattern completion engine, not a fact checker. When it doesn't know an answer, it makes a statistically plausible guess based on the patterns it has seen. It fills in the blanks. This is why it can write a poem, but also why it can invent a historical event. It's simply continuing the sequence, without any underlying concept of truth. This brings us to the ethical hinge on which this technology pivots. As these models become more powerful, the impact of their mistakes scales with them. As they become more integrated into our lives, questions of data privacy and control become paramount. Who owns the conversations? Who is responsible when the model gives harmful advice? The very power that makes this tool so revolutionary, its ability to generate human-like text at a massive scale, is also what makes it a potential vector for misinformation and misuse. The solution is not to reject the tool, but to build a culture of critical use around it. The hard rules for safe engagement are simple, but non-negotiable. First, always verify. Treat its output as a starting point, not a final answer. Second, demand sources. Use tools that can cite their work. Third, constrain its use to low-stakes tasks, or keep a human expert in the loop for high-stakes decisions. This is not about limiting the technology, but about managing our relationship with it. The acceleration continues. In May 2024, OpenAI released GPT-4o for Omni. It wasn't just multimodal, it was real-time. It could perceive emotion, interrupt and be interrupted, and respond with a latency similar to a human conversation. Then came GPT-5 in August 2025, a significant leap in reasoning and reliability, with a built-in thinking process to tackle harder problems. The models are becoming faster, smarter, and more integrated into the fabric of our digital lives. As the models grow more capable, they are being applied to our most sensitive and regulated domains. In January 2026, the company introduced ChatGPT Health, a dedicated experience designed to help users understand their medical records, prepare for doctor visits, and navigate wellness goals. With enhanced privacy controls and a strict separation from training data, it represents a new frontier for high-stakes AI, one where the margin for error is zero and the need for trust is absolute. We stand at a crossroads. This technology offers a path to unprecedented productivity and creativity. It can augment our intelligence, democratize expertise, and help us solve some of our most challenging problems. But it is not a replacement for human judgment. It is a tool, and like any tool, its impact will be determined by how we choose to use it. The future is not about what the machine can do, but what we will do with the machine. It is not a mind. It is not magic. It is a new interface to knowledge, a powerful tool for thought. It is a compass in the fog, offering direction, but never certainty. The destination, as always, is up to us to verify and to choose. This has been an educational documentary, not a product claim or investment advice.